There's a lot of people that call themselves street photographers, but I wouldn't call them street photographers because they're primarily YouTubers. They know how to play the YouTube game and they know it very well. Of course, YouTube will promote that and then they will get a lot of exposure. The problem now is when people don't realize how algorithms work, they think, oh, this is the real street photography. This is how it's done. But no, this is the algorithm that wants you to think this way, you know?
So, welcome back, everybody, to a new episode of Eyeshot 50mm. And today we're sitting down with Robin Schimko, also known to many of you as the real Sir Robin. Robin is a German street photographer, filmmaker, educator, and content creator whose work sits at a very interesting intersection between photography, YouTube, visual storytelling, and contemporary street culture. Robin, thank you so much for being with me and welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Nice. And for everybody who's watching, I just want to leave a very, very small message to keep liking and keep subscribing, because what's a very small click to you, it means the world for us. And we've noticed that if we say a couple of times more, you guys actually do it. So I just want to remind it to all of you. And since a couple of months, all our interviews are also available as podcasts on all major broadcasting platforms. So Robin, let's actually start immediately. And the very first question I have for you, because is before YouTube, before Leica, before workshop, before the public figure of the real Sir Robin, what did attract you to photography, and what did photography give you the other medium did not give you up to this point?
That is a good question. For me personally, what did I do before photography? Honestly, not that much. I had some hobbies, but nothing really serious. And then suddenly there it was, photography. It just came out of nowhere. So actually, I started photography while I was in university. And I've told this story before, but it's basically, I went on a vacation because I was doing an internship. And usually we did not get paid for the internship, but this one paid actually money. So my former girlfriend back then, she said, let's go on vacation. I said, sure, let's go. So I took the money and we went to Maldives.
Wow.
And I thought, hey, if I go there, picture or it did not happen, right? So I have to buy a camera. So I bought a camera and this is how it started basically. So, and the funny part is already there, we went on this one local island and I was already taking candid photos of people. So this already started with street photography, so to speak.
Yeah.
It was kind of funny. And yeah, since then, I never looked back. So this all for me is turned into a massive passion. So I dumped the camera after 2 months because I wasn't satisfied with the camera because it was not doing what I wanted. So I bought a proper camera. And then, yeah, this is how basically street photography for me started. But I didn't know about the term at all. So it took a few years until I realized that's actually a thing. I was just doing it because it was fun. I was just walking around wherever I traveled and took candid photos of people.
Okay, we'll dive into your photography a little bit later. And the next question I have for you is actually, at what point instead Robin Schimko became the real Sir Robin? Was that like something just for YouTube, or did it gradually for you become like a second identity as a photographer or as a human being?
I think it already started before YouTube, actually, because maybe some of you are familiar with Monty Python and the Holy Grail, the movie. I don't know if you're familiar with the movie.
Yeah.
It's like with these King Arthur and his knights, and one of the knights is called Sir Robin.
Mm-hmm.
And he's a bit of a pussy. He's like peeing his armor basically because there's this monster, and yeah, so it's kind of funny. It's very funny. You should watch it. It's really funny. If you like this British kind of humor, you should watch it. It's amazing. And so I like the film so much. So at some point I said, hey, this is not the real Robin, the real Sir Robin. I'm the real Sir Robin. So this is how it basically started. And then when I started YouTube, I was thinking, okay, what should I call my channel? And then, yeah, it was the obvious choice.
The obvious choice.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I will definitely watch that. YouTube often rewards, let's say, clarity, speed, strong opinions, gear, entertainment, but photography instead kind of like requires a bit of ambiguity, slowness, silence, doubt, I would say as well. How do you balance those two completely different worlds?
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. On YouTube, it's basically yes. If you do gear videos, they always perform better because people, for some reason, are more interested in the gear and then in the craft itself. And for me, it's really difficult to strike the balance. Want to focus more on the photography side of things, but then all these gear questions come up. So I will do that, but I don't want to do only the gear review side. For me personally, and actually, I don't see myself as a YouTuber because for me, people ask me, I'm a photographer. So I do YouTube, yes, but I'm not primarily a YouTuber. I'm a photographer. So if I have to pick one side, for me, it's photography, not YouTube, for sure. Because I really enjoy it too much to go out. For instance, if I want to film a video, and sometimes I get too excited when I'm shooting, so I totally forget about the video filming part. So that's why, for me, it's actually very beneficial just have the action camera, just let it run. And then I can do something out of it later because I want to focus on photography. Because I've noticed when I do both, it's usually not very helpful to get the images that I want. So for instance, this is maybe an extreme example, but a few years ago, I was invited to do this project in Spain, and we did this documentary. And they had this film crew tailing me with a big cinema camera, like 5, 6 people. So they said, okay, let's now you just go and take photos. I said, you're funny. Because this is pretty much impossible because everybody was, what the hell is going on? They actually thought we were filming for Netflix. I mean, this was a big production. So yeah, this is more the extreme side of things, but it's the same when I have somebody else following me or I have a bigger camera, I talk to myself. It gets the attention of people. So, and it's actually taking away from the photography side of things. So I cannot really focus on that anymore because I'm distracted and also it gets the people distracted.
Absolutely, with this such a big crew. That's something I connect to what I wanted to ask you right now, because as you said, also your video shows the process behind the image, walking and everything. But do you think showing the process has changed how people understand the craft, and in a positive or a negative way for you?
I think it can go both ways. What I've noticed is sometimes because when you use this kind of camera, these action cameras, they're so wide. They cover so much more than my lens actually in my camera does, right? So sometimes they say, "Oh, why did you not include this or that?" Because it's not possible because it's a different field of view. So this sometimes is a bit annoying because people don't realize that is what they see in the video cannot be captured in my camera. It's impossible. But also, what I think is on the positive side, and I think this is more important, is people see that it's not a big deal because it's all a mental game. People think, oh yeah, when you go out take photos of strangers, something bad will happen. Or it's very likely because most people think that way. And when they see it, they're like, what? Then they see these, and some people actually, they tell me in the comments that they have, actually they get it. They feel this fear themselves just watching it. Just same as if you watch a movie or a TV show and somebody is cliff diving and the camera's looking down, you can have the same feeling in your guts, like, oh damn. And this is the same thing. It's very interesting. I was never thinking about that, but a lot of people told me, oh yeah, I get scared by just watching you approach somebody. And then at some point I started deliberately waiting for some people just to turn around, face the camera. I was playing a bit with this, so because I wanted the people to actually feel it, and then see nothing happens. So this is, I think, this is a very positive thing that comes out of it, because people can see actually it's not a big deal. It's not that bad.
Yeah, facing the fear of confrontation, which is a very big debate for sure. Like it truly hits different photographers differently for sure.
I mean, the thing is, for me, It's the same like walking. I mean, it can happen that you fall, but does it mean you never walk again? Yeah, so, of course not.
Correct. I like this. Yes, it's a very good comparison. Also, a lot of, which is a positive thing on one side, perhaps a negative things on the other. A lot of, let's say, young photographers nowadays learn street photography through POVs, kind of like before maybe buying books or studying on books, prints, exhibitions, or developing like a photographic identity on their own. So what do you think it gets lost when the first teacher is the algorithm to a certain extent?
What gets lost is, I mean, if you go to Instagram, for instance, the popular stuff is all the same. It's silhouettes, it's people from behind. Or it's like, I'm a photographer, can I take a photo? And it's not street photography, of course, as we all know. It's very annoying. But the algorithm is feeding this kind of stuff to the people. So this will affect a lot of people. And I think you have to dig really deep to really find the good stuff. So the algorithm is not really supporting the good photography. I know there's a lot of photographers who are really good, but almost nobody's following them, or they don't get much exposure. So I think the algorithm it can be good, but often it's really bad because it's just pushing for trends usually. Or is there's especially in street photography, I mean, people call it street photography in that term, but there's this camera or that camera, and then this gets pushed a lot for street photography, but it's not about the camera, it's about the image,
Yes,
and
exactly.
so yeah, people have sometimes can get a wrong understanding what it actually is from the algorithm.
Yes, exactly. And do you think YouTube or social media, the algorithms thing on the topic, has created then a better, not better, but like a new version of street photographers or better imitators of street photography, of street photographers?
I would say imitators. There's a lot of people that call themselves street photographers, but I wouldn't call them street photographers because they are primarily YouTubers. They know how to play the YouTube game and they know it very well. Of course, YouTube will promote that and then they will get a lot of exposure. The problem now is when people don't realize how algorithms work, they think, oh, this is the real street photography. This is how it's done. But no, this is the algorithm that wants you to think this way, This can be bad because the real educational stuff is like somewhere you have to really or you have to know what you're looking for on YouTube to find it. But often there's a lot of stuff pushed where I really don't understand why. Also, my friends, I have a lot of friends who do street photography. They say the same thing. There's like, what is this? Why is this now popping up?
I think
It's because
yes.
then it's sometimes it's just luck, or sometimes these people are just so good at playing the algorithm. That's it. And if you know how to do it, you do very well, and you get a lot of exposure.
Yeah, a lot of rewarding from it. Absolutely.
But then also the problem is, if you focus on that side, it's very difficult to focus on your own work more because you cannot do both well. You have to decide at some point because it takes a lot. What people don't understand is it takes a lot of time and effort that's put into the videos. Maybe you watch a 10-minute video, but it took like five days to make the video, film it, edit it, everything. So in these 5 days, you cannot actually go out and take photos because you're so occupied taking care of the YouTube. Yeah.
Exactly. One thing you touched upon before, and I want to dive a little bit deeper now, is photographing strangers, the ethics behind the public space, confrontation, and all of that. So, like today, photographing a stranger is one thing, but filming yourself photographing that stranger for like YouTube is another, as we've said. Do those two acts carry the same ethical weight, according to you?
I mean, the thing is, what I've learned through traveling is that in most places, people don't care at all. They don't care about you taking a photo or filming you. At some places, people actually will ask you to film them or to take their photos. So that got me thinking, okay, why is it that in some places people are so open and in other places they are not? And to me, I think it's the media. It's basically people are brainwashed to assume something bad. You have a camera, you're filming something negative. And I think this made me think that, okay, how should I deal with that? So for me I come from a place, I have no bad intentions. So I'm not doing anything bad. So I think for me, it's okay. This is how I can justify it for myself, because it's okay. I'm doing something good. I'm also, if I photograph people, a lot of what people don't realize is often people, they smile because you give them attention. You recognize that they are there. So for them, because most people just walk around, they don't look left. They just maybe just focused on whatever, their phones. But
Yes.
suddenly somebody's coming up, taking a photo.
Noticing them.
And
yeah.
Yeah, and sometimes it can happen that sometimes people, they're confused because why take my photo? It's like, sometimes they might ask you and they say, hey, man, I don't know, I just looked the way you did this and that, or the way you looked or whatever. And people, of course, they like it, They like if you give them attention, positive attention. So I think actually what you're doing is something positive. It's not negative. So that's why I think what I do is coming from a good point. I'm not trying to portray people in a bad way. Because I try not to do that, because I think, okay, if I'm that person, do I want somebody to now take that photo and show to world? Sometimes it can be funny, but it doesn't necessarily have to be bad.
And do you think then good intention is enough in street photography today?
I mean, what is enough,
Fair.
Who says what is enough, what isn't? I mean, the thing is also what a lot of people always point out this, nowadays there's cameras everywhere. Everybody's recording on the phone. There's CCTV everywhere, basically. So people have no problem with that. So yeah, to me, it's basically the same. Yes.
Yeah, everywhere.
Yes,
and then
exactly.
we give up our rights by agreeing to cookies or anything like that, on social media. So it's interesting. That's why I wanted to ask you. And have you ever made a photograph that you later decided not to share, publish, because maybe later on you felt wrong about it?
Not that I cannot remember any photo, actually. I think if I already took the photo, so I cannot undo it, basically. So yeah, not publishing. I mean, not publishing is, I don't publish most of my work. Not because it's not worthy to be published, but because the thing is, I don't want to spend all the time on social media. For me, I try to get a balance in that, but it's very difficult. Sometimes my Instagram is not really up to date. I post once in a while, yes, but I don't want to have social media overtake, basically. So most of my work is completely unpublished.
There is one thing about your craft that lately, perhaps, and correct me if I'm wrong, that it's moving more towards flash, which is a very interesting thing in photography, at least for me, and has become kind of like a major part of your photographic language lately. What does flash give you that perhaps natural light does not, in your approach and vision to photography?
I mean, lately is good. I mean, it's many years already. I picked up a flash maybe 7, 8 years ago, something around there. And the thing is, I tell people, so I have a lot of friends who are into street photography, and some of them, they never use the flash. So they ask me about it. So hey, you want to try? Here's a flash. I usually have a spare flash. So I give them a flash. Yeah, you can try. And a lot of them, they like it. And a lot of them also, they basically convert over to flash, because the thing is, I tell them, hey, don't blame me, but once you go flash, you never go back.
Fair.
Because the thing is, the flash makes me independent from natural light. And often, if you go out and shoot in really harsh lighting conditions, the flash will basically save you, because otherwise it's really difficult to get any decent photos that not look like crap. So a flash will basically help you to balance that and get, even in harsh environments where maybe midday sun in the summer, you can get still good photos with a flash. So, and also I like the look. The look is, it's a very distinct look. And for me, it's very difficult not to use the flash, because I try to have consistency. That's why I'm sticking to the same camera or focal length and basically using the flash. So to have a certain look in my photos.
Because some people see flash in street photography as energetic, as honest as well, in a way. Others sees it as intrusive. How do you respond to that criticism?
I mean, intrusive, sorry, that's nonsense, because the thing is, the difference between using a flash and not using a flash is because if you use a flash, it screams, I took a photo, because everybody can see it. So that's the biggest difference. And I think a lot of these people that are totally opposed to flash, they're afraid. Actually, deep inside of them, they're afraid. I mean, it's okay if you don't like the look of it, but if you never tried it and then you just look down on people, say, "Oh, you use flash, it's so intrusive," or it's like, oh, what I heard, there's this term, hitting somebody in the face with a flash, and it's just light, you know. If you get your portraits taken, I mean, I now have this LED light here, and this could be a flash. If a photographer takes my photo with his flash, I'm not, oh, don't hit me with a light in my face. Nobody would ever say this, you know. And this is, if you use a small flash, especially depending on your settings, it can be so minor that most people don't even notice, especially in the daytime. At night, yes, of course, you will notice more, but still, you can play with your settings and you can have just a little bit of flash, and it's not really bothering people, especially if you take it off camera and it's not right in the face. So that's not a big deal. And most people, they don't really know what's going on. So they just maybe see the flash, but they don't know where it came from.
And in terms of artistic curation or approach, or what do you want to express with flash? What are you actually trying to do with flash and the subject? Like revealing, interrupting a scene, creating a new kind of, pass me the term, reality in a way? What is it that, artistically speaking, it gives you, apart from the fact that it helps during hard conditions of light, etc., all that we said so far?
It gives me, like I said, it gives me creative freedom. Also, I
Okay.
can play with gels on my flash. So this gives me a distinct look. And sometimes I can make things visible that are not visible to most people.
Mm-hmm.
Especially, like I said before, in harsh environments, if the lighting is bad and then you have somebody in the shade or something is going on in the shade, and this is really hard to balance that, and the flash makes it possible to actually make it visible. Without the flash, you probably would not be able to see it. It would be turned into a silhouette, more or less.
Okay.
And also it could take away from the distractions of the background by underexposing, and then the flash fills in. So you have a very busy, especially in Asia, sometimes in the cities, the backgrounds can be very busy with like this, everything like letters and everything and the flash can basically just tone it down a bit, and then you can have the emphasis more on the subjects themselves.
Today, also, many photographers, I feel like there is a little bit this trend, can create a very strong looking image through color grading, contrast, presets, and all of that. But what makes an image emotionally necessary beyond its look? For you, of course.
Yes, it's when you look at the photo and you're asking yourself, what the hell is going on? I mean, because yes, if for instance, if I film a YouTube video, you have the behind the scenes, you know what's going on. But for people that just look at the image and they don't really know, they don't get it. It looks like a fight in the image, but in the end, it was something completely different, completely harmless, nothing that comes close to a fight. So I think this is very important. And color grading, for me, actually, my post-processing is very quick. I have a preset, just click maybe 2 or 3 sliders, that's it. So usually it takes me 10, 15 seconds per image, because it's not about that. I mean, a lot of photographers know it. If you have to make a photo work just by a post-editing, then it's not a good photo in the first place.
Yeah, drop it. Drop it.
Yeah,
completely.
so I try to have emotion. If you have emotion in the photo and people show emotion or some interesting moments, it's often in photos you see it's just people doing nothing, just standing around. And also for me, I've seen so many photos with too many layers in them. It's nothing interesting, it's just layers. It just shows, oh, I can layer like 20 people in one frame and they're not interfering. Yeah, but Does it make a good photo? I don't think so. I think there has to be something more than that.
Absolutely. You've traveled so much. You've traveled a lot of countries. You met a lot of different cultures and reality. And travel makes photographer more alert, but it also has this risk of exoticizing what you're seeing, what you're encountering. So how do you, with what you're unfamiliar with? So how do you deal with that tension personally, especially in Asia or countries that are different from Europe?
Yeah, I mean, I know what you mean. But for me, I've traveled a lot, and there's many places I've visited so many times, like maybe a dozen, 2,000 times. So it becomes very familiar at some point. So this exotic flavor is not there anymore because I'm already so used to it. So for instance, I've spent so much time in Thailand that it's almost like a second home for me. And whenever I go there, it's yes, sometimes it can happen. I see some stuff that is still exotic and very foreign to me, and it's very exciting to photograph that because, I mean, all the photographers know if you see something new, it's exciting to photograph it. But if you repeat it a few times, it gets boring. But to me, it's more. For instance, when I talk about Thailand, there's these crazy festivals. So this year I was shooting Songkran, the Songkran festival, and I was shooting with a couple of friends, and it was we had just a blast. It was just incredible. And it's often the people also, it's not just the photos you take, also the interactions you have and the moments that you basically save up here. How you got these images is just priceless. And this is something that only travel will give you, I think. Because in my hometown, when I walk around, it's not really exciting me at all.
Yeah.
Because also for me, people, they all look the same almost. You don't find many characters. But some places, they have plenty of characters. And this, for me, this triggers me a lot. So for me, if I go to a place and has a lot of characters, this gets me going. So I was like, okay, I have to take photos now. But here, there's almost none. It's very rare to find really good characters.
And when then a scene is visually extreme in the sense of like with characters, with things that we're not used to, how do you avoid making an image that instead is visually shocking, if you know what I mean? Like that doesn't shock just because it's different.
Yes. I mean, a good example would be the Vegetarian Festival in Phuket. I've attended this now twice. And what I've noticed is a lot of photographers there, because there's a lot of photographers. In my images, you won't see them, but there's a lot. There's almost too many. But the good thing is it's usually there's a parade, so it's very spread out, so it's not a problem. But I don't know if you're familiar with the festival by any chance.
No, not really, actually.
It's a religious festival, and people get their face pierced with all sorts of stuff, with swords and all crazy things. And a lot of photographers that go there, they focus only on the act of the piercings, because the shocking part, that's what you were talking about, right? They focus on that to show this. But when I was there, I immediately thought, okay, this is not what I want to do. Yes, I will incorporate it somehow, but I want to focus more on the other things, the stories that are told basically around the whole thing, the bystanders. And I think this is, to me, this gives me much more than just photographing that. For instance, I had this moment where I was taking a photo of somebody, and there were a lot of people with their hands. I was fairly close up with my 28mm. And then suddenly I was there for 2 minutes, just waiting for the moment that I wanted to capture. So then suddenly somebody showed up from behind me and told me, you're so rude. You're blocking it for everyone. It's like, dude, I'm here since 2 minutes. There was nobody. And if you cannot take a good photo here, it's on you. So this is your fault, It's because people are only focused on that. They don't see the beauty in everything else. And it's a shame, because there's so much to capture there. It's so crazy. I'm never getting bored there, because it's just insane, the photographic opportunities it will give you. But yeah, most people just focus on this one thing. This one thing only is the shocking part.
Yes,
And
exactly.
this is also what can work, but also is a problem on social media. Because on YouTube will immediately demonetize the video. It's like, it's silly, because this is just reality. Why demonetize that? I can show all sorts of stuff, like people half naked and nobody cares. But I show this and people are not harmed. They're not harming themselves because they want to, or they want to have people inflict pain on somebody. I mean, maybe on themselves, but they do it because they enjoy it. It's their culture. So why can I not show that? And if I show that, I will be basically, my views will be slowed down because it cannot be monetized. The same on Instagram. It's the same thing. And I mean, I can understand some people, they might see this and they get upset. Oh, I don't want to see this kind of stuff. Yeah, of course. But for me personally, before I went there, I was asking myself, how can I deal with this if there's like a lot of blood? Because I'm not really good with that outside of photography. But in that moment, I'm observing as a photographer, so I can completely forget about it. So I don't really care anymore. If I would go there just to watch, it would be different, I think. But as a photographer, not a problem.
You find that attachment, you manage to detach yourself from the scene. That's really interesting. Now I want to switch gears actually and dive into the gear culture a little bit more. As we were saying before, photographers often say that the camera does not matter, but many others instead feel they are deeply shaped but what camera they're using. And you're strongly associated with Leica, with rangefinder, Ricoh GR as well, Hasselblad and everything like that, and all compact tools. How much do you think has gear generally shaped photographers' photographic language today?
For me, I think I can see it on for instance, on workshops. One time I had a guy in a workshop. I was in Australia and he was switching cameras and lenses all the time. And he was complaining he's not getting any photos. I said, yeah, that's the problem, because you're switching gears, basically your gear all the time. So just bring one camera and leave the rest at home. Just bring one camera, one lens, and that's it. And then focus on getting the shot. But people are so caught up in, what should I use? That's why I like to use this here, because it has a fixed lens. I cannot change my lens. I have to basically rely on that lens to give me the results that I want. And basically I'm shooting the Leica Q since the first one came out. In 2015, I bought the first day it came out, and I bought it, and I never looked back because ever since it has been the perfect tool for me. Yes, sometimes I'm using other cameras, but mostly I'm using the Leica. I would say for 95% of my work. And people say, yeah, it's an expensive camera. There's cheaper options. Yes, but to me, because since I'm using flash, the leaf shutter in the lens is perfect because it frees me up from thinking too much about my settings. I can just go in and take my photos and don't think about too much what I need to do. And also I don't need to have the biggest flash in the world with the biggest power, because the camera gives me the opportunity to get away with a little bit smaller flash and less power and still get the shots that I want. So I think for me, this is the perfect tool, but for other people, they have to decide for themselves what works, what doesn't. But I think the biggest problem is that people switch up all the time and, I found this new lens. It's the perfect lens for me, or this and that. A friend just showed me a new 35 millimeter. He got sent, and it's like, man, it's just another 35 mil. It's just, what's the difference, If you stop it down, the photos will look the same. It doesn't excite me at all. I get, as a YouTuber, you get so many offerings. Oh yeah, this new lens, that new lens. But for photography, I don't care, because I have my camera set up and this is all I care about. The rest, it's not really interesting. Maybe on the video side of things, I'm more interested in that, maybe to try some stuff. But on photography is just one setup. That's it.
Okay. Like, it's often associated with like slowness or like purity or photographic tradition some way. But it also it is also expensive and aspirational in a way. Do you think Leica sometimes sells an idea of photography to photographers before the photographers actually developed his own style?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me started on the pricing. Yeah, it is expensive, and it's getting more and more expensive. But the thing is, for me, there's no alternative. I've tried a few things, but also you mentioned the Ricoh GR, but it's not a real alternative to the Leica Q. I had so many issues after short amount of time using the camera. It's for repair right now because it's just, yeah.
Lol.
Yeah, it's already broke. I mean, sort of broke, but it's a quality issue. It's not something that did not drop or something. For me, I think, yes, it's expensive, but if I look back, I'm using Q camera since so long. I could still use the first Q that I bought 10 years ago or more than 10 years ago by now. I could still use it. I mean, yes, for YouTube, also it makes sense to have the latest and greatest one. Absolutely. But I could still get away using the old one. No problem. And I would get basically the same images because the lens is the same. The sensor's different, but it would be the same. So if I see it from that perspective, what I paid back then, it was a good investment because now if I see all these cameras, they're getting more and more expensive. Also the Fuji is getting more expensive. And the thing is, but if you sell a Leica after a few years, you will get still a lot of money back. So if you see that, also if you consider that, it's not that bad. But of course, you have to look after your camera. Mine is too beat up, I've used it now since the Q3 since 3 years. And yeah, you can tell, but I don't care. It's a tool.
It's a tool. Okay. And has being connected to Leica ever created for you, like kind of like a pressure to present a certain idea of photography?
No, not at all. The funny part is
Great.
when people recognize me a lot, and but sometimes they don't know my name. So you're the Leica guy. I hear this so many times. Oh, you're the Leica guy. So, yeah, I use a Leica, but I'm not the Leica guy. I mean, I had a few Leicas in my career, but I always come back to this one camera basically. So the M is basically for me. The Leica M is not the camera for me. It looks nice, but it's not the camera for me because for me, flash is just a part of my routine, and with the M it's so much harder to use flash. And I have so many friends that also were using M's, and then after they tried the Q, some of them actually downgraded to a Q.
Okay, so to close this section up, do you think that gear can become costume?
Absolutely. Because when I travel, if you shoot Leica, and it's very easy to start a conversation with somebody that has a Leica if you walk around, because there's not that many. And especially in some places, they are few and far between. And often if you see somebody, it's very natural just to start a conversation. And it's really fun because that way you meet a lot of people. This is actually how I met, one of the photographers who published on Eyeshot. I met him in Istanbul, Max, I don't know him. Max Sturgeon.
Sure.
Yes.
Great.
Because
Max.
I had my Leica with me in a restaurant. And he was also by accident in the restaurant. So that's how we actually met.
You connected.
It's a really funny story. Yes. And we shot so many times since then. And so this is something I really like, because if you have a Sony or Canon and Nikon, maybe even a Fuji, this usually doesn't happen.
Okay,
it happens with Leica cameras. This is very interesting. But often what I see is people, for them it's a fashion accessory. So they have the camera around. The camera looks perfect, it's pristine. They don't really use it like I do. But I think most people actually, yes, because it's so expensive. So they're worried about the camera breaking, and they think maybe the camera cannot take a beating, but this one can take a lot. So, for instance, I had when I was talking about shooting Songkran in Thailand, a friend of mine, and it's very wet, it's the water festival, and he was not really protecting the camera, not the front element of the lens, because he was worried that if he puts on a filter, that the filter will fog up because of the humidity, and then you can't see anything. So, and after, 10 minutes of shooting, we were on the seaside, his camera got splashed with seawater. And the lens got fogged up from the inside. So, yeah, but it's very rare to see somebody. But for me, it's like, okay, that this could be me. This could be me. Because if I see something exciting, and even if it's risky or risk to break my camera, I don't care. I want to get the shot.
I'll go.
So the first thing I did with this camera, actually, I got it. 2 days later, I went to a concert. Not just any concert, it was a punk hardcore show, and it was like total chaos. Stage diving, and I was right next to the stage. So where it got really crazy. So, but I don't care. My friend asked me, "Are you crazy? You bought just this new camera for 6,000 euros. Are you not afraid?" I said, "No, I'm okay.
Fuck
We'll
it.
survive. Not yes,
Yeah.
whatever. You know."
Interesting. One very important thing of your journey, of your photographic journey, is also that you teach workshops internationally.
Yes.
And that's mentorship. I feel like it's also the best part of photography. So the very first question I have, what is the most common mistake that beginners make in street photography?
Not taking enough photos, I would say. I've had people on the workshop and they took 100 photos in a day. It's like, how do you want to get better just by taking 100 photos a day? You know, maybe if you shoot film, yeah, I can understand because it's expensive, but on a digital camera, there's no excuse. Because on a workshop, I want to see a lot of bad photos, because only if you have a lot of bad photos, you have the chance of even getting good ones. Because you learn from the bad photos, so you have to take a lot of bad photos. Most of my photos are really bad. They're trash, basically. I will never use them for anything, but I have to take them because sometimes you take a lot of bad photos in that day, and then suddenly it's like an exercise to warm up, and then when the moment presents itself, you're ready. You're ready to go. Everything lines up, and you have good photos. So I think this is the biggest mistake that people. I think also one reason is they are afraid to get caught. So they just take one photo, maybe from the hip, and then they take off. So, and I try if I see this, what I do is I will force them to use the viewfinder and not move. Yeah, I've done this. I've done this in London. Somebody is so afraid. It's okay. Take the camera up here, and there was the exit of the tube, and a lot of people came out. It's like, hey, you stand there, and the exit is maybe, I don't know, 2 meters, 2.50 meters wide, so it's not that wide. So start right in the middle, pointing the camera down when people come up, and you don't have to take photos. Just stand there, look at the people, and see what happens. So this is because this is the hard way to learn it, but
yeah,
you learn very quickly. Oh, nothing happens. So, and I know I'm not sure if people will still after the workshop practice this, or some do, but you have to do. It's the same in sports. You have to practice a lot. Even for me, if I don't take photos for 2 months or 1 month, and then I suddenly go out, it's the same. I have to warm up, because suddenly you have to bring your courage up to do stuff. You have to get in a certain mental state to do it. And this takes practice to get there. It's the same with athletes, like the best athletes. It's a mental game, physically, they're all strong, but it's a mental game. So it's the same in photography. You have to get up there. And if you're in this flow state, everything goes. Everything is okay. You just everything is easy in that moment.
So can street photography actually be taught, or you only teach people how to stop blocking themselves?
Yes, it can be taught, but I think it depends on the person. I think on workshops, a lot of people go on workshops because for them it's just vacation, especially if it's in a foreign country, and they just want to have a good time and meet like-minded people. And I totally get that, because not everybody has the time. For me, I'm very privileged that I can do this, what I'm doing, and I'm very thankful for it. And often it's very easy not to appreciate that, because sometimes people tell me, oh man, I wish I could do, but I have like a family, 5 kids, a job, so I can't do it, obviously. So yes, for them, I think it's very difficult to teach what I do, because what I do is so different, but it's just because my background is so different. I know some other friends of mine that also are able to travel a lot, and I can see they progress a lot faster than other people, because they just have so much exposure to do whatever they love to do. And if you don't have the ability, it's very difficult to actually teach you. I can give you all the tools, but you have to practice a lot, and this is always, most of the time, it's lacking because people don't have the time to do it. Yeah.
Okay. Today, a photographer is often expected to be an artist, an educator, content creator, marketer, entrepreneur, and everything like that. So at the same time, in this environment, is it still possible today to make a living out of photography without diluting one's own work, artistic expression?
Yes, I think it's possible, but the thing is, if you step into this field with that mindset, you probably will fail.
Hmm.
I think you have to establish yourself first, and then the monetization thing maybe will come later.
Okay.
I think it's very rare that people actually are starting and say, "Oh, I want to be good at that, and I also want to make a living out of it." I think that's very rare. It can happen, yes, but I think it's pretty rare. For myself, when I got more serious about doing street photography, because it was my passion, but I also had this commercial side of photography. And if I would have pursued that more, I would have been financially much better. But for me, it was a personal choice, because for me, this is not what I want to do. I want to do this, what I'm doing. This is me. I want to do this. And somehow things usually line up. Sometimes things just happen, it's this I think this is this, if you have this passion and people can tell, this will draw things in, and this will basically help you also out in the long run. It's very strange it's very difficult to explain this, but I think a lot of people that are maybe in a similar situation, they can relate to that. Sometimes stuff just happens out of nowhere, and then suddenly everything lines up. But yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult as an artist, because like you said, you have to do all these other things also. And it's very difficult to do all these things on a high level. I think it's almost impossible. So I think you have to pick one side. If you're good at marketing, you will do probably good in YouTube, because this the side of thing but then maybe your photography side is lacking a little bit. But maybe this is your priority, then it's perfect, it's good. But if you have your priority is the photography, then it's very difficult to do these other things very well, because you don't feel the passion about that. And then it becomes maybe a drain, and it might become like a regular job, a 9 to 5 that you hate and you want to get out. It can become the same. And that's how people also maybe burn out, because, these things, they take so much away from them, from their actual vision. So,
And is there a danger then that photography becomes content about photography rather than photography itself?
yes, it is. As soon as you start to take photos, maybe an Instagram, as you know, is more catered towards vertical shots. So if you start taking photos in this way, just because you want to please Instagram or any platform, I think this is already it's dangerous, because for me, I live in a world, I take horizontal shots, 99.9%, because
the
this is
eye
my vision.
also.
This is how I see it. Otherwise, it's weird. To me, it's just weird. And I know it's for Instagram, it's bad, but this will not change me, and I will not crop my images to fit that. So they are a little bit taller. But I think as soon as you get into that, then you're a content creator primarily, and maybe not an artist or photographer. I mean, unless you take the photos in this orientation anyway, of course, that's a different story, then it's totally fine. But if you just change the way you photograph, and just to please somebody, maybe also by what you're showing in your images, I think then it becomes dangerous. So you have to go after your own vision and try to not care what people think. Because as soon as you start overthinking, and then maybe somebody might not like what I'm photographing here, I think this is already bad.
Yes, you're going towards the very bad path, absolutely.
Yes.
And in today's time, in an era where AI generated images are everywhere, and everywhere you look, you can find something like that, what still makes a real street photograph valuable?
Where I think soon we will be at a point where it will be very hard to distinguish what is real and what's not. But funny story there. I don't remember. There was this contest for AI photos, and the winner turned out later was a photo, an actual photo.
Yes.
Was not AI. I know if you maybe heard about that.
I think I've heard it.
It's so funny. It's so ironic, and I really whoever did this, man, kudos. This is just it's so funny.
Crazy.
It's so funny, because nobody would ever think about that. That a photo in there is not AI. It's Of course, they will all be AI, but then the winning photo is actually a photo. But that goes to show that photos are still relevant. And I think AI photos, I think people will use it for maybe winning contests. And there's already people photographing basically for contests in street photography just to win them. I know some people that have submitted to contests, and they tell me it's like a circle jerk. Everybody knows each other. So it's like, yeah. And some people actually, they just take the photos for the contest. There's also something what we talked about before. There's already, I think it's dangerous, because why would you do that, Then you're not a photographer anymore. You're just pleasing some judges somewhere. But I think AI in the future, it will be difficult to distinguish. But I think this will also make maybe analog photography more relevant, because it's a physical thing, you have the negatives. Yes, if you shoot photos, you have the raw files, but still it's digital. I think maybe film photography might get more relevant just because of that.
Yes. Also, I feel like to certain extents, like AI, it's kind of like pushing us to get out of our comfort zone in a way, if you know what I mean. Like it's a bit of, it's challenging you more and try to like do even better, like on the very bright side of things. At the same time, AI has a lot of negative effects on photography in general. But I don't know, somehow it could be a challenging way for photographer to explore maybe different ways of doing photography, street photography. I don't know, to think out of the box. I've always kind of like thought that as well.
Yeah, but maybe also the AI would push more for the perfect shot, perfect photos, perfection. But street
Interesting.
photography is not about that. A photo can be completely out of focus. It can still
Gritty.
be good.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
gritty, yeah, and composition may be off, because sometimes there's no time to get the perfect composition, or things don't align this way, but you still get a good shot. And I think AI will probably push more for everything perfect. And everything perfect is mostly that it's boring. It's getting
And
boring very
fake.
quickly.
Yeah.
Yes, fake.
Absolutely. Very interesting. I have still a couple of more questions that I want to dive into. And the very first one, do you think it's kind of like a hot takes in a way? Do you think Instagram made street photography visually stronger but emotionally weaker?
Yes, I think so. Because it's pushing more for these kind of photos that people would hang on the wall, like silhouettes and that kind of stuff. But I think, yeah, for me,
I
it's
can
just,
see
I
that
mean,
you don't like silhouettes.
I don't like it at all. I mean, I'm not against it, but if you primarily go for it, it's okay, but it's not for me. But I think what the that's something positive about it is the connections you can make on Instagram. I met so many other photographers through Instagram, and so we at some point we became real life friends, and sometimes go travel together, go certain places. So I think for me, this is the most valuable thing out of Instagram, is that. So the photography side of things, yes, you will still find really good photography, but I think because I think I don't know the percentage, but let's say 90% of people doing street photography on Instagram are more the content creators who basically please the algorithm. Maybe 10% is the photographers that don't care. They just go out, take photos. I don't know if that's a true representation, but just a rough idea that I have.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I try usually when you go on Instagram, it will on your feed, it will basically show you a lot of stuff or a lot of people that you don't follow, right? I try to just go to the switch over to the page, just the people to see the work from the people I'm following, because otherwise I will get shown all this stuff that's not really relevant. Sometimes it's good. Sometimes you see something interesting new, but often it's exactly that kind of stuff that I'm not interested in at all. Especially these reels,
Yes, too much. Is the
yeah.
decisive moment still useful, or it has become a cliche, a visual cliche?
The thing is, what is the decisive moment? Is maybe if there's one scene, the decisive moment for you might be this. For somebody else, might be maybe 2 seconds later, or maybe different angle. I think it's important. You have to find your decisive moment in a scene, and if it works for you, it's great. But that doesn't necessarily mean that it is that moment specific moment, because who defines what that moment is? I don't know.
What is it for you? Maybe we could not call it decisive moments. We could call it whatever you want to.
It really depends on the situation. So I cannot point out, okay, this now is the decisive moment. It really depends on the situation. Sometimes, let's say, for instance, sometimes you have a scene and you're thinking about, oh, this would be nice if this would happen. But then it doesn't happen. But then suddenly something else you were not thinking about happens, and you take a photo. And then this suddenly is the decisive moment. But a minute before, you're thinking about something completely different.
Okay. What is one uncomfortable truth about street photography that people do not like to hear?
They don't like to hear that most of their work suck, which is true for every photographer. It's for myself as well. But it's very difficult pill to swallow.
Yeah,
I see it on workshops, because I want to see all the photos, also the bad photos, and people are very hesitant to show the bad photos, which is understandable. I can totally relate to that. But there's I think that's a truth that people don't really like to hear, but it's true and it's good. I think it's very important, because if you look at I've seen shows on YouTube, old videos of these famous Magnum photographers going to some exotic places taking photos, and all the photos suck. There's not a single good photo, but they're known for all these great photos. But because it's normal, it's totally normal.
I love it. Talking about egos, guys. Please lower your egos. I think that could be something. Okay, Robin. After all these years of photographing, filming, teaching, traveling, what still makes you do photography, and what still makes you nervous about going out with the camera?
What makes me go out with the camera, first of all, it's because it's street photography, because it's for instance, if you shoot weddings, and if you have shot hundreds of weddings, it's the same. Basically, the people are different, but the rest is the same. So it gets boring. But street photography never gets boring, because you never know what happens. Sometimes you're not expecting anything, and the most crazy thing just unfolds in front of you. I've seen so many things. How is this impossible? My mind could not come up with this, and it's just happening right in front of me. I'm just standing there with my camera. Okay, thanks. I'm taking the photo. I think this is what motivates me, because these moments happen more often than you think, and sometimes it doesn't. Yes, but sometimes it does, and it's super exciting when you get a good photo, or you just had a good time. Even if you don't get a good photo, I think this is what keeps me motivated going out to take or do street photography.
And what still makes you nervous after all these years of practicing, if there's something, of course?
I mean, to be honest, if I would say nothing makes me nervous, I would lie. It would be so stupid. I mean, nobody can say that, Like I said, when I talk about athletes before, they also are nervous, because it's normal. You have to have a certain degree of fear, because this will help you. Otherwise, you get reckless and maybe something stupid will happen. I mean, as a photographer, for instance, when I remember a few years back, I was in Egypt, in Cairo, and I've did a little bit of research before, and back then everybody said, hey, don't take photos of military, police, whatsoever, because you might end up in jail. And they actually do it. They're doing it. I know some photographers that actually were put in jail there. And so I went there, and I saw a scene where some teenagers got arrested. This cop, he wasn't wearing a uniform, but they were in cuffs. And I saw this, I was like, oh, damn. It made me nervous, but then also I realized, hey, it makes me nervous, so I have to take the shot. So I took it. Nothing happened afterwards, but it made me nervous, yes, because I realized, hey, this can get me in trouble, but I'm doing it anyway. It's like, shoot first, ask later, that kind of approach. And it's also in when I went to Mexico, shooting in Mexico, because I've heard so many bad things about Mexico, what can happen. And I know some people that had some bad stuff happen to them. Actually, they were not photographers, but man, they were in
difficult
bad
situations.
I mean, not in difficult, very dangerous situations.
Okay.
So for me, when I was there, yes, sometimes, especially in certain cities where even the locals told you, oh man, be careful. When you walk around with a Leica at night, of course you're nervous. But at the same time, it's exciting if you take photos and then you realize nothing happened, everything is fine, you know. But it will make you nervous. It's totally normal, yes. But
Okay.
like I said, in me, sometimes it triggers this. Okay, if it makes you nervous, it has to be good. So there has to be something interesting.
Go ahead. Yeah, interesting. Very interesting. Very final one. What would you like people to understand about your work beyond YouTube, beyond gear, beyond the public figure that you are?
Good question. Let me think about that. Maybe what I said before, that yes, I do YouTube, I do all these things, but I'm a photographer first, and the rest comes after. And I think when people meet me in person, they realize that, because even because they can feel the passion about it. So in workshops, especially in workshops, people can tell, because I'm pushing students really hard sometimes, because I often realize, of course, they cannot be on the same level as myself in terms of excitement and everything, because I have so much experience in that. But I try to push them in the same direction so they can get a glimpse of it. I don't know. I mean, it's hard to tell.
Yeah, no, that's why I always like to close with this. But I feel like that really summarizes what kind of person, what kind of photographer you are. And I'm very glad that we had this talk today. So Robin, I thank you so much for this time spent with me. I hope I made you feel comfortable as much as you made me feel
thank you for having me,
comfortable.
and it was a pleasure. Absolutely.
It was so fun. And for everybody who's watching, again, keep liking and keep subscribing, because what's a very small click to you, it means the world for us. Robin, thank you, and see you next time.